Hi, we are in this beautiful space, unbelievable space in the Westport Historical Society, and there's a show here all summer. I'm thrilled to say that it's a show about my book, about our beautiful pond. It's a show of my paintings that are the illustrations in the book. I was so lucky to come here to Westport when my children were babies, and to get to sit on the beach at Campo and to drive my car around the corner and find out that there was another beach, which I promptly fell in love with. And I lived in the middle of Manhattan at the time, and we came here every summer for 18 summers. And strangely enough, about 18 or 19 years ago, we moved to Westport full time. And so I was, again, lucky enough to be able to spend time. Each one of these paintings happens when I go sit near the pond and I get to spend, half an hour, looking at something that I love. I have to love something before I paint it. Well, all the paintings happened over those many years that I lived in New York and came here in the summer. And then when I came back, and I loved it, and I had this whole group of paintings, and I had always wanted to do a book about the pond. I was looking for a sponsor. And one day while I was painting on the bridges, looking for a painting of the bridges, there were many. One day while I was painting on the bridges, I met a man who has a house, or had a house, out on the peninsula that we came to call the Cove. His name was Alan Raymond, and he was the historian of Westport. And I was telling him that I was hoping to find a sponsor for the book, and he said, you ought to meet Robin Tauk. She has 2 houses out here, and she loves this pond. And I was fortunate enough to meet Robin, and she did love the project, and the book was born. This is a painting of Alan's clam house, which Westporters remember, I think, because it was such a fabulous place to go. This place that I love has a really great place in the history of Westport. I was so thrilled. And then I began to research the history. These are a group of paintings from the very first summer. It was 1988, when we came and we lived across the bridges. This is next to the mill house, and out on the peninsula, which is called the Cove. But the mill house, when I realized that I had loved the pond and that it was called the mill pond, I wondered, what mill? This must be the mill house. It must have been a mill. And I began to do the research, which I'm going to show you in a moment. But while I'm standing here, I want to tell you that I hope that you'll buy the book and that you'll enjoy reading it. And all the profits from this book, Robin and I decided that all the profits would go to an organization called Sound Waters. They are a fantastic organization that funds the education of inner city children and teaches all the children that live on the coast of Long Island Sound about how important it is to keep the waters clean. And actually it comes to, I believe, every 3rd grade in Westport and teaches about the waters. It's a fantastic program, and we're just thrilled to be able to help fund them, to keep them doing their good work. Back to my mill, your mill, our mill. Here's what it looked like in 1833. And when I was researching this, the incredible thing that I found out was that long ago, I love this, before there was a mill on our pond, before there was a Westport, before there was a United States, before there was a Connecticut, there was this wonderful pond. And in, let's see, when did they do it? John Cable in 1714 got permission from the town of Fairfield to build the first mill. This is the house that's there now. It's not the first mill, it's the 5th building on the site of the first mill. But the story is here, that in the early 1600s, there was a beautiful piece of land along the shore between Fairfield, and here's the thing that thrilled me the most. Fairfield was established, and Norwalk was established, and there was this piece of land between the Saugatuck River and the river at Southport, which suddenly I can't remember the name of, but it's there. That piece of land was not owned by anyone but the Indians. And one day, a group of cows wandered off their farm in Fairfield, and the people who owned the cows went to look for them, and they discovered this gorgeous coast along the shore, and they petitioned the powers that existed in, not in Fairfield, but the court of the country, which was under British rule, and they were granted by the town of Fairfield permission to buy this piece of property, even though they didn't want to give the property up. They much would have preferred to get the taxes for it, but they didn't want Norwalk to move over, and they let these people have this piece of land, and it became known as the Bankside Farmers Settlement, and it was later became known as Green's Farms because the 5 guys who bought this piece of land, the Bankside Farmers, one of them was a man who became very successful, a Mr. Green, and therefore we have Green's Farms. Well, they established a church, which was the West Parish of Fairfield. The church was that church, and the church was established in 1711, then they built a meeting house in 1714, and John Cable got permission to build the first mill. And that was it, because mills were the force of the time. Everybody was farming, everybody was growing grains, and you needed some place to grind them, and there was our mill. And the mill, I found out, became the seed of the birth of Westport, because people milled, they kept on farming, growth filled the area between the 2 rivers, the growth moved over toward the Saugatuck River, and in 1835, Westport was formed. But the beginning of Westport, the reason they were allowed to get a petition to form the new land was because they had to have, there was one stipulation. They needed a church, which they had, and they had to have a mill. And the mill they needed became our first mill at Old Mill Pond. But of course, I didn't know anything about this, and I just fell in love with it. I hope you'll come and look at the paintings. I hope you'll buy a book to profit Sound Waters, and the exhibit's going to be here all summer.